Thank you for joining us here on our Unfiltered Career Insights webinar. It's Matt Henry with Fair and Peers, and I'll sort of be our moderator for the next hour. And I think we've got I know we've got Emily on the line, we've got Jenna on the line. Darlene, are you with us?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me?
There she is. Perfect. Yes, we can hear you just fine. Thanks for joining us. So we're happy to have, we can see there's 34 on thus far, 35 and counting, and we had 128 total sign up for this. So I know we've also got some groups out there that are meeting in groups. I looked at the sign up list. It looks like there's at least 15 different universities represented around the country. I know we have some folks with a group up at UW in Seattle, although I understand there's midterms going on right now, so maybe they'll have to check the recorded version of this because, you know, hey, midterms come first. I noticed we have USC and UCLA folks on the line, and there's a big game this weekend. So, Jenna, are you one or the other, or who are you pulling for?
I went to Berkeley and Harvard, so I do not care.
Oh, okay, you're out of the loop there. Okay, go Cal, and go Harvard. All right. So, and we've got Georgia Tech. We don't have anybody from Harvard, Jenna, but we do have Berkeley, quite a few from Berkeley. We got the Cal Polys, and we got some Bucknell, Cornell on the list. I mean, it's a good cross-section around the country, as well as some folks who are in the working world already right now, not in college, but are out there just by looking at email addresses as well. So, we got some questions ahead of time. We'll launch into those in a few minutes. And we'll certainly, if you want to mention some questions, type them into the chat box, and we're going to do our best to cover as much ground as we can over the next hour. So we're going to strive a bit for we may not go into as much detail as you'd like in our responses, but at this point, so what we're going to do is, like I said, we'll cover as much ground as we can, and if you have other questions, or if we didn't get enough depth for you, encourage you at the end. Amanda's going to put an email address up here at Fair and Peers, and you can shoot your question to us in an email form, and we will do our best to get back to you as soon as we can on that. So we did this webinar, a couple of webinars about a year ago at this time, and had great response, reaching out to either new grads, or about to be new grads, or recent grads, and talking about what's going on in the transportation industry, and offering some advice, as it says, unfiltered insight in terms of what it's like in the job hunt, or even what you're looking for in a job, and how. So we had a lot of great discussion. We did 2 last year. We're going to do 2 again this year. The first one was really more broadly oriented to the industry, not specific to Fair and Peers, and then the second one was more specific to what we at Fair and Peers are looking for. And so we thought, as we go back on this first one for this year, talking about what's happening around the industry, we thought it'd be great to really broaden it out and have the panel be more of a cross-section of the industry. So you see the bios of us here on the 4 of us here on the panel today, and it was great to have Jenna, Darlene, and Emily willing to join us for this. And this is strategic. Not only are all these great organizations that you'll hear from, but all progressive, all in some form of hiring mode, and Emily representing a city, Jenna representing a very progressive regional planning agency, and Darlene representing a larger firm in the industry, and then Fair and Peers is more of a niche specialty firm. So we thought that would give you a little bit more perspective out there in terms of some of the things that we talk about in terms of entering this industry or finding your place in the industry. So we're going to do a quick round of introductions among the 4 of us, and we're going to start with Emily in just a second. But we're not going to reiterate our bio. We're going to assume that you can read that from our website, from the Fair and Peers website, if you want to check that out. And so we've asked that Emily, Darlene, and Jenna just spend a few minutes introducing themselves, giving a brief background on their organization, and then talking a little about the upcoming hiring needs in their organizations as well, and then we'll launch into a few questions. So Emily, please start us off.
Great. Well, thanks, Matt, and thank you so much for pulling all this together. just to give everybody a little bit of information beyond my bio of who I am. I started my career off in the consulting world and then went over to the city early on in my career and spent 6 years at the city and county of Denver. I left Denver and was fortunate enough to work with Fair and Peers for about 10 years. And I really left the city because I wanted to get my hands dirtier in more of the technical work. I wanted to do more of the technical work and learn more about it. I wasn't getting that experience necessarily at the city of Denver. So I did that for about 10 years, and I came back to the city a couple of years ago, and I'm in the role of director. We're the planning arm for Public Works. We have a community planning and development group that focuses more on big picture planning. We're focused on planning for implementation, which is what we do here in PPS. So that gives you a little bit more of an introduction to who I am. Wanted to let everybody know really what we have going on within the city and county of Denver. We have shifted more money into our transportation capital program, which means starting in 2018, we're going to be delivering more transportation focused projects faster, and so that's been enhanced for us. We've also just recently passed a general obligation bond, which is a $950 million bond, and the intent is to spend that money over the next 10 years focused on infrastructure, parks, and facilities. Half of that money is going to transportation infrastructure. So we have a lot of work to do over the next 10 years, which means we have a lot of opportunities that are starting to present themselves, and we're going to be opening up a lot of positions.
Staffing up. We'd like to hear that. Absolutely. Great. Thanks, Emily. Jenna, tell us about what's going on at LA Metro.
Okay, great. Yeah, so I'm with the LA County Metropolitan Transportation Authority, which we call Metro. So we are a municipal entity, so we are an entity of the County of LA. We serve all 88 cities. We plan, build, and operate the transit system. And as hopefully most of you know, a year ago, last November, Measure M passed, which is a sales tax that will create $120 billion over 40 years, so it has no sunset date. So we are on a major ramping up of many new transit corridor projects. What I was told in our transit corridor team is there's 17, from the planning side, 17 projects advancing in various stages of planning. We're also still building projects that were funded in Measure R, which was a sales tax measure in 2008. And then that's on top of also having a pretty dramatic expansion, and I think Matt said it appropriately, we're a very progressive organization, so we've had a lot of dramatic expansion in how we look at things and take a role in first last mile planning, active transportation. The joint development program, which one of the programs I manage, is doing a lot around kind of real estate development and affordable housing issues. Just to give a sense, I'm in the planning department, countywide planning and development, which is about 200 people, maybe a little less. We are organized in 3 large groups, if you will, 3 large teams within planning. One is the regional capital programming and financial analysis, and I think I'm saying that wrong. They manage the money in the sense that we get a lot of grants and we have different proposition dollars, and they kind of manage like what's going where and how. So it's different than the budget group, which is like the year-to-year budgets, but it's really about all the different grants and loans we're getting and when is money going out the door, right? Because we're projecting against future sales taxes. They also manage our grant program, so where we're either going out and getting really giant mega grants or even some smaller grants to implement our projects. Then we're also a pass-through for a lot of organizations getting federal money. So other municipal entities getting federal grants, sometimes we're a pass-through for that. So that's kind of the money numbers folks. A second group, though, is the transit corridor planning team, and now it's actually long-range planning and transit corridor planning grouped. So we are just now embarked on an update of our long-range transportation plan, and it's really taking a more progressive, holistic look at the needs of the county with a lot of kind of ground-up participation. So there's modeling and planning in that group. Then they also actually do the transit corridor planning, which might interest a lot of you. So that's where we go do everything from initial feasibility studies to alternatives analysis, into the environmental clearance of processes of the transit corridors. And as of now, that team will take a project up to about 15% conceptual design before we turn a project over to our engineering and construction folks who progress it. So that's a pretty big team doing really important, exciting transit planning work. And then the group I'm in is kind of a kitchen sink. We're called Community Mobility Planning, and we have a whole bunch of groups. I am over what's called the Transit-Oriented Communities group. We have joint development. We have what's called system-wide design, which is really what someone said I thought was appropriate, was like from platform out into the world. So what's kind of the urban design component of our stations and kind of immediately around our stations. And then I've also got the first last mile planning group, and we have made first last mile planning a requirement of all of our new transit corridors, plus we're trying to apply it backwards to our existing stations. And then I've got, I think I mentioned joint development, which is where we bring outside commercial developers to, build on our properties. So that's my little world. Within the team that I'm on, Community Mobility Planning, we also have some of our operational programs like bike share, parking, and all of our transportation demand management work like rideshare van pool. And then we've also got the real estate group, which are the folks that buy the land that we need for our transit corridors. They manage what properties we own in terms of like the rights of way, where we do short-term leasing. And then they also deal with, relocation and those kind of functions. So it's a bit of a kitchen sink, the group that I'm in. But I think it has a lot of like the community development, urban planning work. And there's a huge push of kind of cross-teaming, even more than we used to do before. So we'll be working really closely with our transit corridor planning team and our money people to make sure kind of the people urban design component is really, important to and part and parcel to what we're doing. So that's hopefully a helpful overview of our planning team.
Thanks. And just so everyone's clear, you said 120 billion with a B, right?
B, yes.
120 billion. Emily, no, nothing against 940 million. We love 940 million.
Yeah.
But it's 120 billion.
Seattle got like 54 billion, so our CEO was kind of joking about that. We're like, yeah, like
Those are some big numbers any way you slice them. So is it safe to say LA Metro is staffing up as well?
You would think we'd be staffing up more than we are. There have certainly been some positions. There's actually been several retirements too.
Yeah.
So some, and I tried to pull a little bit who's hiring. So some positions, and I think it's going to kind of be every year around the new fiscal year.
Got it. Okay. Well, folks can check your website certainly as we go forward there. Darlene, give us the similar overview for HNTB.
Well, HNTB is a very long-standing consulting company. We're very U.S. focused. Unlike many of our competitors, we do not work internationally, but we are involved in every aspect of United States transportation. We work all over the country. We have over 40 different offices that are major offices. We do the vast majority of our work for clients like Emily and Jenna, because we work primarily for public sector agencies delivering transportation. We work in 4 major market sectors, which is aviation, rail and transit, highways and tolling, and we are engaged in every aspect of those sectors, from planning through construction management. So we do planning, we do design, we do program management, we do all kinds of services related to capital project delivery is the vast majority of our practice. We work very geographically. I happen to lead our operations in the San Francisco Bay Area, but the firm has offices in every major urban area and many aspects of the U.S., so virtually every state. We are always looking for talent in almost every one of those sectors and disciplines. I myself, my own background, I'm a civil engineer. We have planners and civil engineers and mechanical and electrical folks and systems people, and we do and touch almost architects. We do and touch almost everything you can think of in, capital projects for transportation systems. And we do, many, many, many different kinds of things in that world. So it's very exciting. There's obviously a lot of changes going on in transportation and a lot of very large and focused programs such as Emily and Jenna talked about. And so our mission is to be there to help deliver those programs.
Great. Thanks, Darlene. And so I'll just say a few words about Fair and Peers, and then we'll launch into questions. So you got the rundown from Darlene, Emily, and Jenna. And so Fair and Peers is also consulting, but we're a niche firm. Darlene, how many employees at HNTB?
About 4,000.
4,000 at HNTB, 265 at Fair and Peers. So that gives you some scale difference. We do a lot of focused exclusively on transportation planning and engineering. We do a lot of work in teaming with Darlene's firm and doing a fair bit of work with Emily's and Jenna's organizations as well. Our focus is exclusively in kind of the latest and greatest in transportation planning and engineering, and so that ranges from every mode to the public and private clients as well. We do some federal work, but the vast majority of it is with states, regional governments, and cities and counties. On the public side, we do a fair bit of private and institutional work with universities, hospitals as well. 265, we do have offices coast to coast, although we're more heavily weighted at the moment from the Denver, it's kind of in the triangle between Denver, Seattle, and San Diego, and then we have a DC office that we're growing quickly on the East Coast as well. So lots of good, interesting things that we're working on. We can talk about some of those things as we launch into the questions right now. So we got a handful of questions in advance from several of you, and we appreciate those, and we're going to touch on some of those as we go, and we've got a few others that have come in as well. As you can always type in the chat window. We'll try to deal with those as well. But we're going to start out with which is the most common question that we get is about differences between either public and private, city and regional agency, larger firm and smaller firm on the private side. So we'll start out with the public versus private comparison. And Emily, we're going to start with you because, as your bio says, and as you mentioned earlier, you've worked both public and private. So what are the key differences? If you're either a new grad or a recent grad, what are the kinds of things you like to advise folks on? Because there's no one fit perfect for everybody, right? It depends on the individual.
Right. No, that's right. And from my experience, there's a fair amount of difference between the public side and the private side. My experience has been really on the private side. You work on a few projects. You have a handful of projects. You do all the detailed work. You get in there. You meet with your client. You're very client focused. Whether you're running traffic numbers or you're designing a roadway, you're in there running those programs. On the public side, if you're a new graduate coming into the public side, typically what you're doing is you're reviewing those plans, you're reviewing those technical studies, you're making sure that those studies move through the process, which can be a sticky process on the public side. So you're making sure that things are moving forward. You're meeting with a lot of various consultants. You're meeting with developers. You're meeting with folks from the mayor's office. You're meeting with internal agency folks, whether you're coordinating and collaborating with the Parks Department or various folks within Public Works. So you get, on the public side, you certainly get a lot of exposure to a lot of different people and a lot of different consultants. Coming into the city of Denver early on in my career, I really was able to formulate my own opinion of who the good consultants were. So when I moved on to the consulting world, I selected the consultants that I thought were top-notch to go and talk to when I decided that I needed to get more technical and down into the details on things. So I certainly saw the public side and the private side are two very different places. I think it's ideal for folks to understand the different perspectives. On the public side, we're looking at our infrastructure as if we're going to own and maintain this infrastructure for years to come. So there's a bit of a different perspective when you're on that public side,
right?
Based on the projects that you're looking at. So it's good to have perspectives and understand what those different perspectives are. So I certainly encourage folks to not pigeonhole themselves and be open to experiencing both sides.
Darlene, I don't know that you worked. Did you start your career on the public side or no?
No, I didn't. I'm an incredibly long-term consultant who's always done all of my consulting for public agencies. So,
well, you have some perspective on this, not from the inside, maybe like Emily.
Yeah, I was going to say, unlike Emily, I can't say I've actually worked at a public agency. You know, I think that my initial, many years ago, interest in consulting was I was very attracted to the variety of consulting and to being able to do lots of different kinds of projects. I still think that that's, you know, a great positive about consulting. I think that consulting is often capable of providing a lot of career flexibility and a lot of different kinds of opportunities within the framework of one company. Again, I think it's you know, it's one side of the coin that Emily was describing. She did a very good job of explaining, you know, that we're very focused on helping our clients deliver whatever their needs are. But in doing so, we get to do a lot of very interesting, very different things.
Right. Yeah. Jenna, your background was affordable housing before you, according to your bio, before you joined LA Metro, right? So what perspective would you offer if somebody asked you this question?
Well, actually, before Metro, I was at the redevelopment agency for the city of LA for almost 7 years. So I certainly did, and then I did work at a nonprofit doing affordable housing.
Okay, that was what I was thinking, the nonprofit beforehand.
And to be frank, the year and a half at the nonprofit is the only time I've been in that's considered private sector since graduate school. I worked in the private sector in consulting, but not in this related field after undergrad. So pretty much I have a public sector perspective. Mm-hmm. So it's hard for me, especially as I've grown in my career, to compare public and private. I think
sure.
that I think what's great about the public sector is, you know, the amount of impact that you can have, right? I mean, it's like nothing else, particularly at Metro. I mean, we are in it. We are it.
Right.
And everything about the urban realm. I mean, even in affordable housing, we're doing a lot in that space. So we're touching on everything, and you really can have direct impact, and you can see it. And so I think that part is really exciting and gratifying. It's also really hard. Like there's certainly bureaucracy that you have to be willing to deal with, and especially if you're coming in at an entry-level position, you're going to get stuck doing stuff that you're like, I didn't go to grad school to do this. And you just got to suck it up and do it, and know that we all do it. And you got to work really hard. It's just hard because, as our Chief Planning Officer, Teresa McMillan, says, there's always pianos falling out of the sky.
That's
so
right.
There's challenge, but I mean the benefit, the reward of what you get to do is really amazing and really gratifying. So I think there's a real opportunity to learn and have an impact. But definitely coming in at the ground level, you know, you just got to be willing to dig in and do whatever it is that needs to get done, and trust that as you grow and progress, you're going to have opportunity to be running things and managing things.
That's great. Well, we promised the audience unfiltered insight, so that you just got your first tidbit out there about pianos falling out of the sky. So thanks for sharing that. I think that's great perspective. I also notice from my own perspective, I've never worked specifically like Darlene. I'm sort of a lifetime consultant myself, but never having worked directly with for a public agency, but working with them really for the entirety of my career. You do see a lot. We hire a number of folks that do one or the other or spend some time in both, and there are some common themes I think out there. One of the things I like to point out is pace. The pace of work can be very different, but there's a perception that agencies are slow and consultant pace is fast. And I'd say that while that's maybe generally, on average, that's the case, I know some very fast-paced public agencies that are out there, like that have pianos falling out of the sky. That's not exactly a slow-paced environment at LA Metro. And then I also know some fairly slow-paced consulting firms out there that are more moderated in terms of their pace. So I think it behooves you to really be open and to be, as you're interviewing, to be talking about what it's like. And in particular, I always like to encourage new grads especially to talk to other recent grads at that organization and find out, management's going to tell you one thing, which is fine. I'm not saying management's going to lead you astray, but they've got a perspective, and to get more of an on-the-ground, what's it like working here perspective, you're going to get that more directly, I think, talking with some folks who are recent grads or recently in your position would be my take on that. Now, I want to talk a little bit about also the city and the regional agency. Jenna, you do have more direct comparative on this comparison. So if we're thinking about, hey, I want to be in the public sector, but I'm not sure I want to be in a more of a city context or a regional funding, a regional agency like LA Metro. What differences do you see there?
Because I worked for the redevelopment agency for the city of LA, and I actually worked for a mayor. I think part of it is you need to understand who's directing you. Like with us, we have this giant board where, 12 of our 13 board directors are elected officials. That has a huge impact on kind of how you manage up and how you have to respond to things. Versus in a city, maybe sometimes, I don't want to say it's easier, but you have less of this kind of direct, constant pushing in terms of what you're doing on a day-to-day basis, or it's easier to have more direct contact with some of the key decision makers in a smaller, city kind of agency. Although again, at CRA LA, we were giant, so we were working in the second largest city in the country. So the interesting thing about Metro is, as large as we are, I still think you really can have some neighborhood impact mixed in with the larger scale impacts. I guess for me, the difference that I would say for anybody thinking about where you want to place your career is understand in what space you want to be playing in terms of, urban design or planning or transit engineering. Understand the scale and space that you're interested in and do your best to match that to what the agencies do. I don't know if that's helpful.
No, I think that's very helpful. Emily, I don't think you've worked at a regional agency per se, but I know you interact with RTD and Dr. Cog and others there on a daily basis, I'm sure. Do you have any insights on this topic?
I agree with Jenna. Some of the smaller cities are probably much different than, say, the city and county of Denver. We collaborate really closely with our regional partners, so we work with them on a day-to-day basis. And it is about where you are getting the direction from. Within the city and county of Denver, more recently, within probably the last 4 years, we have such a strong city council and vocal city council right now that much of our direction is really coming from our mayor's office and city council, and it's filtering through our executive management. So understanding, where that direction is coming from will be helpful. But I would also encourage everybody to just go out there and try different things. You never know what is going to be the right place for you.
Mm-hmm. So, would you think it's fair to say that when you have very strong leadership, I'm not talking about the electeds now, I'm talking about the staff level, like the executive level staff, when those folks are strong, well respected by the electeds, and just outstanding in their work, that it makes it a better place to work at an agency? I mean, it's been my observation from the outside looking in. I'm curious if that's
Absolutely.
your perception. Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, it's up to the executive level staff and leadership to really shield staff from sort of the craziness around the mayor's office, at least from my perspective.
Pianos.
The pianos.
Yeah, exactly.
And there are so many shiny rocks out there, so when you have strong leadership within an agency, it just makes life so much clearer and easier to strive to be your best.
Darlene, how about big firm versus smaller firm? You know, a multidisciplinary firm like HNTB, niche firm. What are your experiences on that? I think you and I both started at the same small firm, right? Didn't we? Although a little different timing, but we determined after the fact that Darlene and I both started our careers at the same firm that was pretty small back in that day, right? So you've got some comparison there on this point as well. What are your thoughts on small versus large?
You know, I think that the nature of consulting is such that no matter how big the firm is or how small, it's eventually organized in a way that is focusing on a certain set of clients or a certain geography. So I think that sometimes the advantage and sometimes the perceived advantage of a larger firm is that you simply might be able to reach out for you know, more overall resources. But I think in terms of the feel of a private consultant, it pretty much comes down to kind of where you are in the organization and your own local office. Because at the end of the day, it's kind of like the phrase, sooner or later, all politics is local. Well, sooner or later, kind of all consulting is local too, because that's kind of the level where it matches up. So I think I've worked in organizations as small as a couple of hundred people, and I've worked at one point in my career for one of the big national firms that's, you know, well over 100,000 people right now. And then the reality is you know, there are different elements to, you know, the size of a company. But the reality in terms of the work environment or how you may succeed or thrive or enjoy pretty much comes down to kind of what's around you on a daily basis.
Yeah, I think that's great perspective. And yeah, the what is small and what is large anymore, right? I mean, at 4,000, I know to us at Fair and Peers that seems large, but like you say, there's other firms out there that, you know, that are well in excess of 50,000 people or 75,000 people or whatever it is. So it's all relative, but I like to advise on this topic too that it's don't go to work for a company on your perception of their brand. You may have, you know, heard something from a friend or talked to somebody about, and you may have some perception that, wow, this company is great. I've heard of them before, therefore I'm interested in them. That might be a good place to start, but I go with you know, interviews, talk to people, and I'm with Darlene on this. Focus more on who actually you will be working with in the office that you're going to be based in. There's other resources out there, but it's important to understand more specifically. Don't let perception become your reality. Form your own perception based on who you interact with and what kinds of projects you would be working on, what sort of resources you would have access to, the degree to which that organization is going to be investing in you. All those things are very, very important, way more important than sometimes I hear people say, oh yeah, I've heard this is a good company. Well, who have you talked to there? Well, nobody. Okay, well then, you know, that doesn't necessarily mean it's going to work for you. This isn't just like you're going to go visit some city for a few days based on some recommendation. We're talking about your career now. So try it out. Go talk to people. Like Emily said, get out there and see for yourself. Don't go on perception, I think is really good advice. Anything else any of the panel members want to say on this topic before we move on?
Matt, I just wanted to highlight, you're absolutely right about that. Don't go on perception. A lot of people have these preconceived notions about working for a municipality or jurisdiction, Matt, you mentioned, it's a slow pace. And in fact, it's actually not. It seems slow when you look at it externally, but when you're actually in it, there is so much going on. And the people that I work with here at the City of Denver are incredibly high achievers and hard workers. And so don't base everything off of what you think you know. I think it's excellent advice.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. That the perception is out there, though, isn't it? That the agencies are slow paced. I'm like, yeah, not a lot of the ones we work for. That's not the case at all. So I think it behooves everybody to get out there. Well, let's shift gears now and talk a little bit about. I'm just checking the chat window here. We're good there. So let's talk a little about top qualities that you're looking for when you're interviewing candidates that are coming right out of school or recent graduates that are looking to come into your organizations. Are there things? I mean, yeah, we know it's all, the communication skills are important, all those things. That's I think what our folks, our audience is looking for is anything sort of under the surface about what your organization might be looking for that's unique and more specific to your organization. Darlene, maybe we can start with you on this, and then we'll go around the horn.
Okay. I think that, especially when we're looking at younger professionals, maybe just right out of school or with only a few years of experience, I think that one of the things that we get very excited about is quality that we care about is kind of enthusiasm for trying new things, being flexible and interested in multiple things, because consulting is, as the public sector said that pianos drop out of the sky, things can change fairly rapidly in consulting as well, and our projects can shift, and what we need people to do from week to week can sometimes move pretty quickly. So I think that having the kind of personality and mindset, I think if you are at all thinking about consulting, kind of test your own interest in, do I like to try new things? Am I willing to try something that might be a little out of my comfort zone? I think we really look for that quality, and I think the other quality that we're very looking for, and you did touch on something that's very important to us, Matt, when you said, communication and, people-to-people type skills. But the other thing that we're looking for is also people that are very interested in what we would call the big picture. It doesn't mean that we don't want you to be if you want to design bridges, we are very happy to have you be very focused on the details of designing bridges. That's very important to some of the things that we do. But we really get doubly excited when you want to know how the bridge is being paid for, and why is it important, and which agency is really driving it, and what's important to the schedule. And so we really do value people that have an interest in really understanding the business of transportation and infrastructure, kind of from top to bottom. And I think the qualities of, being willing to try new things and being very interested in really understanding the whole are things that we care about a lot.
Great. Yeah, that's very helpful. I think great insight there. Jenna, how about from your perspective at LA Metro?
Yeah, I mean, there are specific technical skills, again, depending on which team you're going into. So I do think it's important, and I don't know if you're going to ask this, Matt, but I can give some tips about how to understand our job postings. Is that for later?
No, go ahead. Go ahead. While we're at it, go for it.
So in terms of the specifics, I can tell you that Metro, they're called talent management. What is HR? It's a nice name. When you put in your resume, there's a job description, and sadly, a lot of them are really generic. They're like transportation planning, something. senior principal. And I mean, that includes like my joint development team. These are folks, for the most part, have a community development background. Like we come from redevelopment, affordable housing, that kind of stuff, and yet they're still called transportation planning. So the key thing is to look at the job description and what skills, because the hiring managers, we don't do the initial screening, talent management, HR does. And they say, does that person meet these basic skill sets? So I do think it's important to match up what your experience and your basic skill sets are, and if it's entry level, it's going to talk about more basic things about your education and your background, because that's how you're going to just get the initial screening of getting the first interview. We do a 2-interview phase. Generally, there's what they call a qualifying interview, and if you pass that, you get on what's called a qualified candidate pool. We call it a QCP, and that is golden. You guys, if you're interested in working at Metro, even if it's not quite even the right job, like, oh, that one's in grants and I want to be in transit corridor planning, it can be a really good thing just to get on that list, because once you're on that list, if I've got a job that comes up, I'm going to ask them to pull everybody that meets certain criteria on that list, and I can skip the initial interview and hire off that list. Or if you get on the list, but you don't get the job, you do a second, say you do a second interview and you don't get the job, you're still on the list, and say you're at an event and you meet another person at Metro, and they're like, oh, I'm hiring, and you're awesome, and we could just go to the list. So I always encourage people that if you want to work here and you see that a job is posted and you think you meet the criteria, just try to get on the list.
So let me get this straight. You would have to pass HR, or you said talent management?
Yeah, HR.
Okay.
I'll call them HR because it's easier, but they're called
okay. So you have to kind of pass the HR gauntlet first to get on that list. Is that correct?
You have to pass the gauntlet to get an interview.
To get an interview. Okay.
If they post a transportation planning job, it'll have a description, and you'll put in your resume, and they're going to look to see that your resume meets what that job, says they're looking for. Like, if it's a higher level, it'll be like, 3 years of experience doing this, or that, this kind of background in education. It's usually pretty broad. So they're going to look at that high-level screening, and if they pass you, then you get a first-round interview. So if you get the first-round interview and you pass the interview, you're in a pool now. And it's always good to be in a pool. I have been able to hire people off a pool, and that skips kind of a whole process and phase of posting a job and going through a lot of first-round interviews.
That's
so
great
I always encourage people to look, and even if it doesn't look quite like what you want, if you think you meet the criteria, get on a pool.
Just get in
Once
the pool.
you're on a pool, then there's the second-round interview, and that's where I want to get a little higher level to what you just heard Darlene talk about, because the second round is going to be with the hiring manager and possibly, one of their colleagues, or like sometimes my direct reports that are directors that are hiring bring me into the second-round interview, and that's where we start to look more individually, like, okay, you already meet the basic criteria, you have the skill sets. That's where I think folks start to differentiate, and look for the specific qualities for their team. So for my team, there's definitely a mindset we're looking for. We are fast-paced. We work our butts off. We do 6 million things at a time, and so we're looking for someone that can roll with it. Looking for someone really with the attitude of just like get the work done, and that sounds obvious, but I mean, I have certainly had people that just feel like this work is like beneath them, or why aren't I doing this really cool thing, and why am I being asked to make copies or get ready for this meeting? And what happens with us is if you have other skills, by the way, that always get me excited, because I'm terrible with mapping and like laying out PowerPoints and stuff. If you have some of that skills and you're willing to do it, what you get is access, right? You get access to everybody who needs help prepping for meetings, and in the process of doing that, then you're brought into all the discussions with the consultants and that we're working with and with other departments. So like when you can just step up and be willing to do what needs to get done to move the work forward, then you get a lot of access. So we look for that person who doesn't have like this ego idea of like, I need to be the cool person running the meeting, but I want to be part of this team that's doing the hard work. And it's hard to quantify that, but we definitely, we look for that. We look for the problem-solving kind of mentality. I think those are the main things, again, for this second-round interview.
Great. That's very helpful. That's great tidbit there on the little inside information on how to work your way into the system there at LA Metro. Emily, how about you?
Well, we have a little bit of a hybrid system as well. We also have an HR gauntlet to get through, but I'd certainly, similar to Jenna, encourage anybody to apply for positions that they qualify for. because once you get on a list, especially with the number of hires we're going to be making over the next couple of years, we're not going to have time to always go out and post to fill a position. We're going to be looking at the lists that have already made it through HR and be interviewing off of those lists. But then I also encourage people not to just look at public works, but also be open to positions that are open in our Parks and Rec department, because we have planner positions in those departments. We also, in CPD, we also have positions that are going to be opened up or opening up. So, you know, don't necessarily pigeonhole yourself. Just get in and get on a list. We're always looking for candidates that are very collaborative and are focused on being a team player. We collaborate with our consultants. We collaborate with other agencies. So we need somebody that is willing to take on that, and folks that are good with people, basically. A lot of energy. We look for folks that have a lot of energy, folks that are willing to do anything and everything, because some of the work that we do isn't much fun, similar to Jenna. However, some of the work that we do is incredibly fun, but it all has to get done. So we're looking for people that have that energy to get all the work done that needs to be done.
Great. Yeah, very helpful. Yeah, it's only fun in the private sector, right, Darlene? I mean, we don't do anything we don't have to do. We don't want to do, right? Yeah, no, that's exactly the same.
It's fun every minute here in the private world.
It's exactly the same. A few other thoughts I would just, in addition to what others mentioned, we use the term entrepreneurial a lot in our company, and I feel like that's that person who wants to come in and jump in, make it happen, if you will, take risks, and are not afraid to speak up and say, hey, I'd like to be involved in that. I'd like to. It's too often, sometimes we hear from people and say, well, I didn't know that was okay, or people say, I would like to have done this last year. Well, did you ask anybody if you could? Well, no, I was waiting for someone to tell me maybe I could. Well, that doesn't work around here. We don't have time for that, and we don't want to hire tons and tons of oversight and management. We like people that are generally self-managed and are willing to step up and take more responsibility on, just like you heard some of the other panel members say. The other thing that's important, and I know this is the case at HNTB as well as for us, is if you want to be an analyst, then you're probably not, consulting might not be right for you. Consulting is exactly what it says, almost like look it up in the dictionary. It isn't all analysis. Yes, there's plenty of analysis that we all need to do as a part of our consulting, but at the end of the day, consulting is about communicating with other human beings, and that's written form, that's in person, that's making presentations, that's whatever it might be. And that if there are jobs, though, in this industry, that if you want to be more of an analyst, somebody that enjoys kind of being behind the screen and executing work, there's room for some of that in consulting, but at some point that might become a limitation for you to move up within consulting, frankly on the public side, I'm sure as well, that if it's about the interaction with people as well, that we're always looking for that combination, ideal combination if we can find it. So some additional thoughts for the candidates there. There was a question that was submitted ahead of time specifically about how can students distinguish themselves before graduating? So is there something they can do in terms of classwork, internship, research, or something that might really help give them a leg up when they do apply and get into that application process? Darlene, is there anything, advice specific that you might give to the group on that front?
Can you kind of rephrase that again for me,
Sure.
Matt?
Sure. It's how can master's students distinguish themselves within transportation before graduating? So are there classes? Are there internship experiences you're looking for? Is there something that when you see that resume you go, oh wow, okay, they have this, and that maybe moves them up to the top of the pile? There's something they can do before they graduate.
Oh yeah, absolutely. We're very interested in people that have internship experience or people that have volunteered in some way that has given them some more real world type exposure. Certainly we value their graduate school experience. That's just another plus that we would look at in terms of their credentials. But definitely, and like I think probably all the organizations that are represented today, we ourselves also provide a lot of opportunities for interns and love to do so. For us, a very major success story is, for us to have someone, whether it's undergraduate or graduate school level, working with us, and then when they're done with school, coming to work for us full time. So we enjoy that path as well. But yeah, I think anything that lets us see that there's been some some energy and some effort put into exposure to things that you're going to encounter in the real work world is a big plus.
Fair to say that you don't care what grade they got in thermodynamics? Would that be fair to say?
That's not nearly as big for us. But I will say one thing that is, and I'll just tuck it in now because I don't know. I know we're coming close to the end, but one of the things that Matt said really resonated with me, and it's certainly, I think, a great thing for anyone that's starting their career, especially in today's environment, to think about, and that is, no matter what, we want people that can speak up, and people that can speak up and communicate with people. So if the only way you feel comfortable communicating is by texting, you might want to think twice maybe about consulting. I mean, there are good analytical jobs like Matt talked about, but we find that especially our younger professionals are very focused on electronic communication, and one of the best skills we see in any of our younger staff is the ability to speak up and share and give their opinion and be willing to interact with people in a way that doesn't totally rely on how much we all love our electronic communication these days.
Great. Yeah, thanks for mentioning that. Emily, how about things specific that some students might be able to do before they graduate that would give them a leg up at the city and county?
I would certainly highlight internships. I'll be completely honest. Our associate planner positions require 1 year of experience, but we count internship as experience. So,
good to know.
Yeah, so we certainly would look for that 1 year of experience. So I'd say go out there, get some experience under your belt. Our staff engineer positions, which are entry-level positions from an engineering side, do not require that. However, in order to be competitive, we are looking for some experience in the real world before coming into the city. And then I'd also highlight get to know your professional societies. Here in Denver, I don't know what it's like in California anymore, but here in Denver, WTS is a great organization to be a part of, and they do a lot of social activities, but they also have a lot of professional development activities, as well as ITE. So make sure that you are joining those professional organizations to get to know some of the folks that are out there hiring.
That's a great point. It can be intimidating, I know, for students just to sort of go cold to an ITE meeting or a WTS meeting or whatever it is, but there's great networking. Us professionals love to see students come into those organizations, and of course there's lots of scholarships available out there as well. So that's a great, if you don't know where to get started, oftentimes that's a great suggestion to offer up. Jenna, what would be your advice on this question?
Yeah, I mean, I would echo, what my colleague said about looking at just experience. And again, it's not the only thing that gets you in the door, but I think it's what stands out, because we get great resumes from grad students, and generally there's a set of courses that everybody has taken and everyone's excited. So when you know that someone knows what it is to be in an office setting and work, it's helpful. I want to add a better spin on that in case anyone is feeling like, oh God, how do I do that? We have two great programs here at Metro. One is we have paid internships, and it's rolling and ongoing. So it's pretty easy to find on metro.net. If you look on working with us, there's a section on both internships and one of our training programs. So we do part-time internships for students, and we pay. I think if you're undergrad, it's like 12 and maybe up to 13 or 15, I can't remember, for grad students. You can work up to, I think, 30 hours a week, and I think more over the summer. So those are great opportunities because, again, we pay, and you learn. And then the other is what we call it. It's now called, it used to be called the entry-level training program. It's now called the transportation associate position. So those are full-time positions that you can get if you've just recently graduated. They're full-time, so you work 40 hours a week. I think they pay $20 an hour. There are some limited benefits. There's some parts that kind of are lousy about it, like you don't get paid holidays, although you do accrue some time for time off, and you do get some limited health benefits, not like the full pension benefits that we get. But it's a maximum of 2 years, but you're part of a team. I mean, you're working full time with us, so that is a great way if you're really itching to get in. Now, the hard thing about it, I want to be frank, is, and we've struggled with this, is we have this person working full time on our team, which means we need them, right? You're doing full-time work. There is no guarantee of a full-time job after the fact. Like, it doesn't lead to us then having a vacancy and we get to hire you.
Sure.
I have been successful in that we've had 2 TA1s who were just so critical to us that we kind of left out or had some changes or vacancies, and like we hired them. Like, I underfilled a higher level position with an entry level position because I was like, there's no way we're losing this person. So that's a really good way to get experience and maybe to get a full-time job.
Sorry to interrupt you there. It sounds like it's like a working interview almost at that point.
But
right?
Yeah, I mean, but what's hard is that it's more than that. I mean, you spend 2 years working full-time on a team. You're part of that team.
Yeah, that's true. It's not. It's beyond an interview, but there's an opportunity for you. If you prove what you're worth, then senior management will say, hey, we've got to have that person. We'll find a way to make it happen.
Yeah, and again, even if we can't find a way, like there was somebody on my team and she was great. She wasn't quite right for the team, but one of the projects she worked on, she was so amazing. She ended up working for one of our property management, like capital projects firms, who was doing all these construction projects because she was overseeing implementation of one of our projects with them. So even if you don't end up with us, you might end up with one of the consultants that you're interfacing with all the time, you know, working with us, because it's a real way in to get, especially if you haven't had internships or really good working experience. That's a really good way to get in and get that.
That's a great point. I'll just close this one by saying that I'll reiterate the internship point, and that's something you heard from all 4 of us. So hopefully everybody gets that idea. And please don't wait until like April or May of each year to apply for your internships. Get going much earlier than that. The second thing that I always would, in addition to what others said, is software skills. When you come in and you are at least knowledgeable, proficient would be even better at various skills that you will be learning, or that you'll be using on the job, and I'm talking about beyond sort of the Microsoft Word suite, is to to be able to demonstrate you can come in and get moving quickly, and you can even get like freeware sometimes, or like free demo software versions, even just to familiarize yourself with something that might be useful in that work setting. So that can really be a leg up as well. We are right up on our time, and so I want to be sensitive to that, and I want to maybe give one more opportunity. If there's anything that was on your list of things, if any of the panel members wanted to work in somewhere but didn't get the opportunity to, anything that we missed out there, guys? Hearing none, and I'm not seeing anything in the chat window. Again, the hour always goes by quickly on these, and I want to thank our panel members, Emily, Darlene, and Jenna. You guys did a great job, and so appreciative of you carving out some time to participate in this. I'm sure our audience really benefited from this, and you can, as is up here on the screen right now, you can see any questions that we did not get to or things that you think of later, feel free to email them directly to us, and we will do our best to get an answer back to you as quick as we can on those. And so this has been a lot of fun, and thanks everyone for joining us, and again, thanks to Emily, Darlene, and Jenna. Good luck to everybody out there. Thanks very much. Have a good evening.
Thanks, guys.